welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to create epic organic techno drums. As you can see, I have grouped my entire drum track into one single track that I've labeled drums. It's just a nice hat loop with like a bunch of random perks tossed in, and as you can see, I've made a few strategic cuts just from trial and error, because if you're going to have multiple loops playing on top of each other, unless they are perfectly designed to fit into each other like a puzzle, you're going to have to do some strategic cutting. As you can tell, I've cut this one up a bit as well. This one I've hardly cut. The same goes for these two. As you can notice, loop number 4 is quite a bit softer because I just want it, in the background. These drum loops have hardly been chopped up because these are great loops. Sometimes you just get lucky with, loops that fit together. Now that I wanted to add another 2 loops, I had to cut it up. So if we go to this loop that I chopped up here, so just to keep the flow of the track, I've added ping pong delay onto it. So I'm going to take the delay off of this chopped up loop, and you might hear periods of abrupt silence, and that's not good for flow. So what I did is I added a simple ping pong delay filter. I might even have like a little too much. Bring this down a hell of a lot. You can still notice a big difference. To the bass stab, this is where things start to become more sporadic. I start using all these different drum elements, but they're way more spaced out than these like solid drum loops. And as you can see here, this does not hit on the grid exactly. At first they did, just to get like a general idea of where I wanted them, but especially with like random shots in this genre of music, you don't want things to hit like on the grid every single time because that becomes repetitive and boring. Say if all these bass stabs fell on the grid, I would just control click on a Mac, and then where it says fixed grid, I'll just turn it off. I would highlight every single bass stab on the track and I would play around with it just randomly until I find something that it feels random, but it's not too random that it like throws you off. It fits in with all the different elements of the track. Over here I have like a little snare perk. I don't know what to call it. Basically, this is just a higher frequency layer of my actual main snare or clap. This just goes on as an additional layer to, full out the sound of the snare or clap. I've only used these during the drops just to create more emphasis, because before the drops, pre-drop or build-up, I don't have any snares, I don't have any claps. It's just hi-hats and random percussion. Because this is such a powerful sound, I don't want to overdo it. I want it used very sporadically. And as you can see here, again, I've only used it in the drop, in the powerful parts, and it's extremely spaced out. And as you can see, again, it doesn't fall straight onto the grid. What I have done again is I've controlled, clicked, and turned the grid off so I can find the perfect placement, that fine dance between on the grid and random. And then over here, I have what I've called a pre-drop roll. I only have one of these. And as you can hear, it's just a drum loop that, brings the drop back in. So if I play it all together. And as you'll notice here, I have applied a fade to it. If I take this fade out, if I put the fade back in, that's one thing you'll see me using a lot of in Ableton Live is the fade. I love it. And it goes both ways. So this you can fade it in, but as you can see with the snare here, I faded it out at the end. Obviously because there was like a very long tail here, which I didn't want. That would just get in the way of the mix. If I put the fade back, it's way more snappy, it's way more punchy. And I do this for the kicks. Basically anything that is like low frequencies, so because low frequencies kind of get muddy in the mix, or even like mid frequency that it has like a long tail that I don't want, that's where fades come in handy. The big snare roll, this is actually 2 loops that I've molded together. Originally the snare roll was like this, and what I do when it's like that is I just copy paste or just option drag and then set it up like that. And then this one, I double click on it. And then where it says gain, I just bring the gain down all the way until it like actually fits in like a puzzle. And then I would select both of these clips, Command J on a Mac, which joins it together. Now you can see it's one solid loop. And then I go to the fade option. So I'm on it right now, but if it's not on it, just press A on the Mac and then you just drag this right here. You can drag it to your liking as well, you know, like this. But yeah, so this just makes it one long loop, if a long loop is what you're looking for. This is a great dry loop that I had, and I just put a bunch of effects on it. I put some ping pong delay on it. I'm going to delete this auto pan because I'm not using it. And as you can hear, I've added a reverb automation on it. If I take the reverb out, you'll notice it doesn't transition as nicely. I'll take the delay out as well. Now let's put the reverb back on. As you can hear, it kind of swells up and it builds up, and that's what we want. And then lastly, the ping pong delay makes the tail even greater. So this snare roll is pre-drop, and this snare roll right here is coming out of the drop into the break. So this is just like another drum roll that I have, and it's kind of like a reggae Bob Marley style drum roll. And this is just for like a nice transition, especially if I have a place in the song where I don't have an element to fill up the space, the frequency. I just add one of those things, you know. I have a crash that I've put some reverb on, quite a lot of reverb actually. As you can see up here, I've increased the depth a lot. If I take this down, not as airy, not as spacey. I could even increase the mix if I really wanted to. I'll come back to that. Over here I have a delayed clap, so you can see I've got ping pong delay on it and a bit of reverb as well. This just brings more variety to the impact of the crash. So if I play the crash and the clap crash together, yeah, it just gives a lot more variety, a little more ear candy. Over here, we've got the main clap. So this is going to be big and loud. These claps that I have here, they're only hitting when the drop comes in because I don't have claps or pre-drop or during the break, only during the two drops. Over here, we have a tom, and you'll hear again, I have a fade to it. If I remove the fade, it's a big sound. It probably has a big tail that I don't really want. It sounds muffled, the tail makes it sound muffled. So I'm going to go ahead and Command Z, bring the fade back that I put in here. As you can hear, it's much more punchy. The tail is gone, so it just brings up way more space. Even though it seems like such a small little thing, when it's repeated over and over again, it just brings in so much more space into the track, so much more air for it to breathe. Okay, so that is basically all the drums of the track that I have. Everything that's low frequency or even like lower mid frequency, or it's just a loop that has a lot going on in it, you want to sidechain these things to the kick. At the root of it, it's pretty simple if you can wrap your head around it. Let's just go to the first loop here. Keep in mind that I have sidechained most of my loops to the kick, but not all of them. If I go to the first loop here, especially since I have like a lot of effects on it, I've got a delay on it, a reverb. The first thing I did is I sidechained this to the kick. That means every time the kick plays, which is the lowest frequency of the track, the kick and the sub bass, or the lowest frequencies, you can't have other frequencies. Like this is not actually a low frequency as it is. It's a pretty like high frequency, but there's a lot going on in it. So every time the kick comes in, you can see this is ducking. If I take the sidechain off, it has a lot more free roaming, you know, and this gets in the way of certain elements of the track. So if I put this back on, every time the kick comes in, it ducks in volume. I haven't done it for this one. I might add in a compressor to that one actually. I'm gonna add it in quickly because I kind of know that I want this to be toned down a bit. Oh yeah. You see, I was even missing that. I didn't even realize. This one has a compressor sidechain to the kick. And for some reason, I have not included the kick in my drums. Probably because I have an automation on the actual drum group that I did not want my kick involved in. And that would be the frequency over here, this frequency automation. And the reason being, I don't like when a kick gets brought in and out of frequency slowly over time like this. I prefer when it's just a straight line and then another straight line, you know what I mean? It makes the kick sound weird. But anyways, let's go over the kick really quickly. So basically, I have two kicks here. I have one very low, deep, powerful, subby, boomy kick. And then I have much higher frequency, punchy kick. And as you can see, if I zoom in here, I've also applied fades to these kicks, because if I take the fade out, if I remove these fades, it's too much. There's too much of a tail. So let's put these fades back. It just sounds so much more punchy, and we like that. With the sidechain compression, a lot of the drums are compressed to the kick. So every time this kick comes in, boom, 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 boom. All these other elements in the drums and the rest of the track will have to duck in volume every time this low frequency kick comes into the picture. Just for an example, let's go to the main sub bass. Even though this is not part of the drums, just to show you how sidechain works in a very noticeable way. This is the sub bass with the sidechain compression to the kick. If I take the sidechain compression off, it's just free range. It's running wild. All right, happy producing, all the best. Peace.